Wow, that's
706.
Just in case you weren't sure, now you know.
Distance, right? Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag,
of the
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. There is no public here. Did we receive anything for public comment, War?
we have not.
All right. So let's go into Open Space Public Act 490. So it is my understanding, and I'm sure Rory will correct me on this, that Open Space Public Act 490 will cover properties that don't fall under the Farm Act definition per our assessor. You know, under the Farm Act, under to become a farm, I think you have to produce and sell your wares. And under the Open Space Public Act 490, that does not necessarily mean anything. So the handful of people that we have coming to us complaining, well, not complaining, I really shouldn't use the word complaining, you know, concerned
about the issue.
concerned about, you know, well, you know, we're a farm, you know, I have sheep, I have cows, I have this, I have that, but they're really not a farm because they don't sell the wares. This may be able to help them. Could it hurt our grand list? Maybe, but I don't think a lot. I think it will help our citizens, and that's what we really need to start looking at, is helping our residents. So Roar, if you read the thing, so if you can give us a little bit of a.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you had the pleasure of watching our Board of Assessment appeals this year, but every 5 years, so first off, Public Act 490 includes the farmland. That is part of Public Act 490. So that governs farmland, forest land, and open space. But as go ahead, Bob.
And when did that?
No,
Rory, I was just going to ask, when did that get?
I don't know when Seymour adopted it. I don't know.
This last form was revised in 2002. I'm looking at the application to the assessor. Yeah.
So as I'm reading this document here, they exist as municipal options, right? The state sets out enabling legislation, and then the municipality has the options to adopt them or not. And so Seymour has the farmland designation. And every 5 years, I believe coinciding with revow, it can be reassessed by the assessor. And as you all know, Joe is a stickler for the rules. And, you know, there are matters that are open to interpretation in terms of the productivity of the farmland and the like. And that's been really the point of contention. And so, to my knowledge, Seymour does not have the forest land or open space options.
Right, and I was just looking at the application, and the application, they have one for open space, they have one as forest land.
I don't know if that's a state form or is that the Seymour form?
Nope, this is the DEP form.
Okay, but if Seymour doesn't, I don't know if Seymour has the option. That's the thing. So you can apply for it, but if the Board of Selectmen has not adopted the option, then it is not an eligible thing to apply for. And I think that's what's going on.
Okay, so would it make sense then when, after, you know, we've had our time to go through this PA 490, when we go to present this ordinance to the Board of Selectmen, do you think it would be a smart move for us to say, to include the farm, the forest land as well? Oh, they have farmland on here as well. Yep. Farmland.
No, if it's a deep form, I don't know, unless the Board of Selectmen specifically acted to enact the open space option. And I would have to consult with Joe Kuziak, and I went to speak with him, but he's out on vacation this week. So I would have to follow up with him.
Okay.
I know the farmland exemption exists. because people apply for it.
Right, but we don't know if the forest land exists.
And this was brought to my attention by Tara in the assessor's office, so I would assume she would not have done so if they were already enacted, but I would want to double check with Joe to be sure.
Okay.
But a couple other things just to kind of spell out how it works.
Mhm.
Really, you guys would essentially set, you guys have latitude in the ordinance to set the level of taxation. So since this is something that we're trying to bring about for the farmers so that they don't necessarily have to jump through all the hoops associated with farming, you might choose to set it at an equivalent rate. Or, you know, that's within your discretion at any rate. What you need, and then you can set a minimum lot size. And so different municipalities do it different ways. I believe Stephen said that he sent this handy dandy packet out. If not, I'll send it to you with a couple of highlights just that spell out sort of the things that you would have to decide. But you know, some places, as I read it, have it such that you can set it to be any land that is not covered with a building. So there can be a building on the lot, but the lot has to have a minimum size of, let's say, 2 acres, and anything that's not covered in the building counts as open space.
Is there a time period as well, Rory, that you have to classify? Because there was a comment made in something I read that they're subject to conveyance tax penalty if it was changed in a certain period.
Correct. So actually, that was the one thing I had followed up with Tara about today to try to get some specifics, and I just had it, and of course I flipped away. There's a penalty. So essentially, if somebody has to apply for this, very similar to the farm exemption,
Right.
if they get it, there's a 10-year clock.
What do you mean here?
And
So
once they register as whatever for this, then they have to be for 10 years.
Okay.
Right?
correct. Or, I mean, you know, nobody can force them to do anything, right? They can choose to sell their land, subdivide, do whatever they want, but there is a conveyance tax
Correct.
that functions as a penalty. So reading this, the tax imposed for a sale, transfer, or change in the land use, and the tax will be 10% of sale price if sold within the first year of classification, 9 if sold in the second year, et cetera, down through 10 years. And so, you know,
Oh, okay. So it's a sliding scale.
the
Reduced.
value of the property, and yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, the point of this, right, that the farmland classification is to encourage and, you know, help farmers out because residential tax burdens can be expensive. Additionally, there is some analysis in here that kind of demonstrate that these various types of classifications have a lower service burden. And so it's fair to tax them less because they require less in services. Basically, if somebody applies for these exemptions, the purpose is to maintain it as open space, obviously, or forest land. So the question is that something that this town and you guys want to do? And I think there are some other stipulations in there. I think it has to be in line with the town's plan of conservation development. I think the planner has to get involved. This is not a simple undertaking, but it basically comes down to, you know, there are a few parcels that come to mind in my mind that are large, they're not developed, and do we want them to be? And putting this in there allows them to continue to keep it as one large parcel. Some of them are farms that have this kind of questionable productivity. This kind of gives them an out, but it also allows just a large landholder who is holding on to speculative land, who's willing to either wait 10 years or pay the conveyance tax penalty. So it's a double-sided sword in that respect.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, correct me at every step where I misspeak or am wrong. There's not a hell of a lot of properties that this is going to affect. I understand Rory's point about some of these larger tracts. As much as I am in support of keeping open space, I love driving through some of the areas and just seeing the nice open fields and farm type land. The savings in taxes, I don't think are, with this or without, are going to stop somebody from selling if the right price comes. And eventually there's always the right price for them to develop their land. I don't see somebody waiting years.
Then they have to reapply, right? And so if it's a transaction, Rob, then they have to reapply for this.
That's
Well,
correct.
I'm saying if somebody's going to subdivide, if I have 20 acres that I'm not doing anything and I'm not farming, but I'm going to be able to apply for this open space, that's going to lower my taxes, and that's wonderful. That's an incentive to keep it there. But then Bob Finley Developers comes by and says, hey, we want to put houses here. We're going to sell it. You know, that's going to trump any of my any savings there.
That's great.
So it's a bit of a carrot, and that's wonderful. What I'm hearing is adding layers when I think what the focus should be, and the problem seems to be, is that when it comes to the farm, which we already have, there is no strict criteria. So you have one assessor who let things slide and another one who says, I don't feel that that conforms to what it is. So I'm taking it away from you. And it is completely based on how Joe feels. I mean, let's be very, very blunt. He doesn't think that a particular citizen's farm is a farm. So he's taking it away every opportunity he gets, and then it goes to appeals, and that homeowner gets it reinstated.
Nope.
I would push back.
Mhm.
It is not, I feel like Joe, that I have to step in and defend Joe a little bit. It is not arbitrary. So this same packet spells out the farmland exemption, what's required, and it lays out acreage, the portion of the land in use for actual farming purposes, the productivity of the land, gross income, equipment used, and contiguous, non-contiguous tracts, leased land, horse operations. So there are factors that what Joe doesn't do, and this is true for residential land as well. If, for example, and this is not what it says, but if a farm is required to be, you must have 1 acre in use for farming purposes, and somebody is, at 0.99, he's not going to tell them you need 1 acre, because then they'll plant 0.01 acres and hit the limit. And that's where he rubs people the wrong way. But Joe knows his stuff, and it's spelled out in this packet. So again, I'll send this out to you if you don't have it. But
Okay, so regarding Jamie Brennan, does he meet the criteria or does he not?
He does not.
well, that's it. It's in the assessor's discretion. But for example, if we just look at these criteria, the portion of the land used in actual farming and the productivity of the land, right? So, I don't, this is all guessing, right? But let's say Jamie Brennan has 20 sheep on 20 acres. How much land does a sheep need to graze? And so the factors of but he only grazes them on 10, and a sheep only needs a 1/4 acre. So the land is underutilized in terms of the productivity of the land, and the portion used in actual farming is half. And these are the factors that come into play.
Now, Jamie has overturned Joe's decision in the past, correct? Through appeal?
I believe so.
How is that?
Last time?
So again, if it goes to the Board of Assessment Appeals, this is a jury of their peers who, I believe Joe kind of tries to brief the board on where he's coming from, but they can choose to ignore and overturn him. So I believe this year they upheld his decision. And so we'll see if it goes to court, whether a court upholds it. I don't know. I don't know that it's made it that far before.
Okay, so adding forest and open space, is this going to make things easier for citizens in situations like that to have, I'm going to say, a looser criteria? Or is this just going to add more avenues of contention?
So,
I
I'll-
think,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I think it's gonna make it easier. So let's say a horse farm, right? You have to sell wares, you have to make money on it. But a horse farm, you don't really make money on. We have one here. They don't get farm status, but they can get open land. If we do this, they can get open land stat.
Right.
They get the break for the open land because their land is open for the horses to graze on.
Correct.
So they're not put into that corner of having to make a product or produce something,
Okay,
if I understand that correctly.
So again, this packet lays out examples of criteria that have been adopted by towns in Connecticut.
All right, why don't you send us that packet
Sure.
so that we could look at that packet, and then next month, give us a month to really look at it, digress it, research it, get our questions together, or get questions together before our next meeting where we can have Stephen research or you research it.
And I think it's smart to have Joe come to answer questions because I'm sure he knows all about this already.
Yeah. And then just go from there. I think it'd be smart if we had the packet.
Absolutely. I wanted to, this was recommended and I wanted to bring it to your attention to see if it's something that you wanted to pursue.
I think so. Rob?
yeah, I'm just wondering how many people,
How
once
many
we
would
add
they-
something like open space, what is the limit? Can I go for open space?
We have to see what the acreage is.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. Once I look at the packet, I could see, but I'm like,
It is really, I mean, when I'm reading through this, so land must be recommended for preservation as open space in the town's plan of conservation and development. It must be identified on a map in the plan of conservation and development. It should be,
do we have one of those?
We have a conservation committee that's just starting to meet now.
we're required by law to have a plan of conservation and development. So
Right.
we do, but I don't know if it addresses this. So my point is just that it is not a simple process for the landowners or for us to undertake this.
But I do believe it is the right direction if we can find, because we've run into this problem before, and this kind of gives us a little bit of a loophole for our residents that they can utilize to get the benefit of that.
I think so.
See, that's just the very wording of that loophole. If you have to come up with loopholes, that's where I feel like there's.
Well, I'm saying it, that's a bad decision that I just made because it's a public act, so it's not like,
Yeah.
And it was
Well,
written.
it's another
the
tool.
loophole
It's another
was-
tool in the toolbox.
Yes.
Yeah, this was written in order to address this very problem.
And that was my point, is I don't like it as rather than, I'm gonna say, fixing a potential problem of personalities, of understanding of criteria, instead of fixing that, just saying, okay, we're just gonna add this other layer. But I do see, like Anne Marie said, with certain lands like a horse farm, this is a good avenue for them. This is an additional tool. So that alone, I think it's good for the citizens, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Don't say loophole.
or even somebody that has donkeys, or they have a petting zoo. Petting zoo, they do not make money on, right?
Is that petting zoo in Seymour, the one when you go up by Haddad? What is it, Old Ansonia Road?
Yes, that is.
That is within?
That's DiMartino's, yes.
But
Yes.
unfortunately, if we do put an acreage on it, that might not, I mean, I don't know how big it is, right? It could be
pretty
big
big.
enough. Is it big?
Yeah.
Okay, so it potentially,
But they're also I don't, they used to be a slaughterhouse too.
really,
So they raised cows like Bamba. Bamba's raises cows.
right?
Or they raise cows and they sell Betsy.
Correct.
I name
Delicious.
the cows as I drive by them. So they're very good.
Okay, so I want a chance to read through the entire packet. Let's see what's gonna entail, but just in general, when we first discussed this, I am in favor of, as Rory said, asking the Board of Selectmen to go through whatever process they're going to have to do for this to become an option for the citizens.
I think it would be helpful for you guys, and again, we can kind of walk through what needs to be determined. And so like come up with a list of what you guys would have to make a decision on for you guys to give a recommendation to the board.
Mhm.
And you then explain kind of how you arrived at it.
We don't have to give a recommendation come our first August meeting. We can wait till we have the packet and give our recommendation, end of August, beginning of something. I don't want to put us into a box time.
But this does have to include, and you guys made a comment of it, we are gonna have to document the impact and all these different things that have to occur in order to make this happen.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
this is more of a project plan, I would say, versus a recommendation.
to not use names, there are large parcels in town that we know people want to develop. So I think this is a positive thing, except for the fact that we know that there are parcels that people want to develop. And if they know that they're going to wait 10 years anyway, we're allowing them to cut their taxes in the meantime. That's the only downside of this that I see, provided that you guys want to provide way for property owners to maintain their property as open space or forest land.
That's where having, I'm going to say, a rough idea of the numbers would be wonderful. How many properties could benefit from this based on the criteria that we're talking about? How many properties are over? And right now, technically, as far as I know, none of them are identified by our Conservation and Development Committee because we don't have an active one. So they would have, once they have identified the properties, then we would know how many there are to see if it's something we're going to want to.
Can we put the caveat in, Rory, that the open spaces, that this is for areas that are in residential areas? They are not in a commercial or industrial.
There is, let me see if I can find it, a section in here.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe, if it has to be identified in a plan of conservation and development, there are commercial and industrial zones that I would imagine are intended to be developed. And so I would think that it wouldn't necessarily be a conflict.
Yes,
You
but
have to know if 490 allows it to be segmented like that.
yeah,
I don't know. That's
because there could be one that wants to, keep going every 10. On Bungee Road, which are residential areas,
But
not a commercial area.
to answer your question, is there a way? Yes, right?
Okay.
You have the tool of being able to identify the eligible areas
Okay.
in the plan of conservation development. But that's a conversation with Keith, the planner, about how that works.
that is true. Then you could define where those are. Then I'm guessing.
And yeah,
I get it.
That's my understanding. If you think about it, something that is owned commercial, there's an intent to develop there. That's why the town has zoned it in that way. So
yes, but some people may not want to.
I see what you're saying. But
Now that the ball goes on.
Okay, so I just found a document just to clarify, and it references towns and then towns with PA 490 open space classification. I'll give you one of them. I'm not going to tell you the town, but the criteria says parcel must be located in a residential zone. Each parcel as recorded in assessor's record shall be treated as separate parcel. So it's very definitive on the criteria of where it could be used. So it seems like they can define where exactly what zone it can be in. Like another town just said, any land that is underdeveloped may be classified as open space. So that's another town, right? So just, what I might do is send you guys this document because it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
In this document, there are 5 examples. And it ranges to, it must be twice the zoned lot size, right? Because we know there are areas where the lots are, you know, 1/10 of an acre, and there are areas where they're a full acre. So that's interesting. A minimum of 5 acres, 7 if there's a dwelling on it. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, makes sense. Like this one it must have 5 acres minimum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or if we're looking at the same document, maybe.
Is that, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, I don't think so. I just found each town broken out.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll I'll get you guys this packet. I think Tara had access to it as an assessor because I went to their website and couldn't get it. So I will get a copy to you tomorrow, and then we can have Joe present for the next meeting.
Okay, great. All right, so the next one on there is liens and back permit fees.
So this was related to the structure fire on Main Street.
Did you give us a piece of paper on that one?
No,
Okay.
this may not be possible. This is something that was discussed, and Rich was looking into it, but I don't think he ever got back to us. Essentially, there's a state law that allows the town to withhold building permits if back taxes are owed. And so we attempted to do that for the gentleman who owned the property, one of the properties in the Main Street fire, until we recouped the amount that is now put as a lien on the property. But we were told not to do that because we don't at least have an ordinance yet, if it's even allowable. So this is a question for Rich.
All right. All right. So we can ask him that and have him at our next meeting, I guess. So we're going to table 6. Yes. Okay. Civil Service Act, number 7. Did I miss massage parlors?
That's,
No, it's coming up.
All right.
that's
Civil Service Act.
So
We don't have a civil service.
Selectmen's meeting, Seymour used to be a civil service community. It is no longer. It was struck from the charter, but the corresponding ordinance section was not. Was not included in your packet. It was sent as a separate attachment because it's so long.
I got it. Yeah.
So the recommendation here would just be to strike this to align with the charter.
I agree with that.
So moved.
And then massage parlors.
All right. So the Civil Service Act, are we agreeing that we just strike it and become aligned with our charter? Okay.
Yeah, we absolutely should.
Okay.
The massage parlor ordinance, my understanding is,
It's insanely long.
yeah, there was in Seymour at
We need it to be.
downtown a massage parlor that functioned as a brothel.
Stop talking about JD's that way.
I am. It's legendary. I didn't know it personally, but everybody who has been in town a long time has heard of it. So this was a reactionary ordinance because of that. What happened, there is now a masseuse, a licensed massage therapist who is operating on Main Street, who had all sorts of hoops to jump through. She
Oh my gosh, yes.
The ordinance requires that a form to be generated by the chief of police must be executed. Chief of police came to us and said, I don't have a form. So
I
I,
want to say
Becca
had to make
made a
it.
form.
Yeah, I think she did.
probably.
She did.
And then the question came, what about the nail salons that do foot massages? Are they technically supposed to be doing this? Nobody knew this was a thing. This is one of these apocryphal things in the ordinances that this poor woman discovered, and it delayed her opening by months.
Mhm.
So now we have a form, and that shouldn't happen again. But Anne Marie will recall, I don't believe either of you were on the board at the time, but Karen Stanek had asked the Board of Selectmen, and they moved forward with putting in a very comprehensive adult business ordinance as well.
Yes, I remember that. That was many, many meetings that we had and many meetings that went very, 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 very long. Because we wanted to make sure that we were not Milford, where they had that bookstore and the VIP room on Boston Post Road.
Well, Pier 34 was not following any ordinance, I can tell you that much.
No, they were not.
They were grandfathered.
Yeah. Right.
And
by that we mean everybody's grandfather went there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
and they didn't do massages, so they were good.
Well,
So you think?
For the
So anyway, if the intent is to prevent adult businesses, we already have that. We don't need both in a specific, extensive massage parlor ordinance that has not been enforced.
since the 70s.
Are we currently going out of our way to ensure that the nail salons or tattoo parlors or liquor stores are not owned by shell companies and people who have had felonies and backgrounds and and all the other crap that we have here?
No.
Yeah, then
Okay.
I think that, I think if a massage parlor starts doing that, there's enough social media that somebody's going to hear about it and the police are going to do their job at that point.
Well,
Right.
okay, yeah. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this a little
That's
bit.
what we need.
And depending on what you want the town to become and the direction you want it to go, I think some of those things will vet out what you don't want the massage parlor to be versus what you want it to be, a legitimate business. I listen, there were some things in there about ages, documenting the ages of the people employed.
Yeah.
I think some of that stuff is because of what can happen and child trafficking and all those things. While it's difficult, I don't think those are bad things to have in this.
Are we doing it?
I'm very, very specific when you're dealing with this type of massage parlor.
Well, speaking of human trafficking, and specifically, I'm thinking about the nail salon.
Mhm.
And I don't know how this is going to come across, but you hear a lot of stories of, Asian trafficking and where they're working off their debt from being brought in, sometimes situations like that. So that's where I ask, are we looking at other institutions? And massage parlor, I definitely understand the when you say uniqueness of that. Are we putting things in to be able to look at other businesses under that kind of scrutiny with that lens? But I definitely think that there should be those things. Now, is there any other, I'm going to say, agency that oversees things like this, or was it just Seymour?
Department of Health.
Yeah, and I think that's the important piece. How does it tie into the Department of Health regulations? Because that, to me, is what we should be going by, right?
Oxford. My wife gets a massage once a month. She was going to honey, what was it, Visabella?
Yeah.
Visabella, and they just moved from Middlebury to Quarry Walk.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they had any number of hoops to go through, and I wonder if there's any chance that a place like Visabello would have wanted to come to some area of Seymour, but went to Quarry Walk because it was easier. I'm sure that's not the case because Quarry Walk is gorgeous and that's why they went there, but just gonna throw it out there.
You know, if I'm trying to browse through the adult business ordinance to see if this is truly redundant. So there is,
Didn't we have a massage therapist down here? Right on First Street?
We have a Reiki. Reiki.
Okay.
Reiki.
I don't know. I don't recall having an exclusive massage therapist before, but you know,
I'd like to get a JC foot massage person.
I mean, actually, the community center used to have someone come in to give chair massages.
Yes.
Following the ordinance?
Yeah, but, right, so from an ordinance standpoint, it could be as simple as they have to have a massage therapist license,
Yep.
or, you know, right, you don't have to go through all the conditions of what we put, but we should have something to identify that it is a legit business. You know?
I mean, I would recommend maybe the browsing through the, because I'm reading and it's sort of, it doesn't directly cover massage parlors, the adult business ordinance. There's something about a sexual encounter center that sort of gets to it. But it doesn't specifically mention it. So maybe what I would say is, I don't think you need both, but I think you can fold them into each other. And maybe you could modify the adult business ordinance.
Beef that one up a bit.
Yeah, you could add a massage parlor definition.
Yeah, whenever there will be massage parlor,
Yeah, and there, it says here, you know, it requires a business license and an employee license, and you know, this stuff, it's here.
Business permit, masseurs permit.
If you really want to specify massage based ordinances, you know, then this would be the place to do it.
And yeah, I just don't want to completely just, you know, take everything out. I think we should take key points so we have some components of regulation there, and then don't make it so difficult, right? So I think,
You know, the fact of the matter is that it's illegal, right? The type of massage parlor that this ordinance is trying to prevent, regardless of whether it's an ordinance.
yeah,
At that
but,
point,
but that's the point, though. You're trying to filter out before it gets there.
do we have an ordinance that every liquor store can't serve to somebody under 21 and restaurants can't? So do we have that?
Right.
Isn't it state law that you can't, you know, do what they were doing?
No.
I get what you're saying, Bob, that this is trying to prevent it to get to a point where the police have to be involved in order to shut it down.
Right. Well, you're just taking some, I look at this as some proactive steps to reduce that burden. If other towns don't want to have that and it's easier for them to get in other towns, great. But, you know, from a vantage point of, I don't want to make it so it's not attractive because you want the right massage businesses to come to town, but you don't want the wrong ones. So how do you do that? And I think licensing and all those things are just the components that force that hand. I don't know.
You know, where is it? The adult business ordinance, looking at it, you know, there is a definition section. So again, if you want to fold the massage parlors into this, you can add a definition to it. And then there's an additional section about licensure. And between the two of those, I think you can accomplish what you want to.
So I'm looking under 2.3-2 for definitions.
Yep, that's the one.
Right, and it has it, so we could put it in there. However, we do have one about adult motion picture. Oh, that's a theater. Never mind.
Theater.
Because if you know, if we attracted somebody is looking to, a movie production company is looking to move into Ansonia. Just in case, you know, they want to move into Seymour, I want to make sure we can do that. You never know.
Where Rich said our adult business ordinance was modeled off of, but it's one of the models for the state. So
I would say put it in the definitions and then take this section out. We
it's
don't
also
want to.
a question for Rich. You know, he can tell us the best method to do this.
I don't want to box us into a corner where we are so limited to what. Listen, I don't want to see a VIP store in Seymour or one of those stores.
We're too small for that. It'll stand out like a sore thumb.
Yep. In Seymour, we don't need to have another Rena's boutique.
Correct.
Right. But however, I don't want to box us into the store where we are, box us in the corner where we are limited to what we could have. Because say a Spencer's wanted to come in here, or say a Hot Topics wanted to come into a strip mall, just say, because they're normally found in the mall. They have adult themed jokes, like the, you know, underwears and stuff like the joke stuff. So are we saying that we can't have those type of stores here either?
Listen, here's my thought. Okay.
Mhm.
Being the size of town we are, the where we're visible, okay, you don't have a lot of places to hide those type of businesses.
Correct. Pier 34.
No different. On Route 8, we used to have the magazine store next to Sabos. They used to have an adult novelty store next to Sabos.
Did they?
Yeah, absolutely, for years.
Yep.
Again, it stands out because it's right on Route 8. You can see it off Route 8, and it's in a thoroughfare. We don't. I don't think. I would say, again, not being a large town, you can't hide those things. You don't want them You don't want them coming off exit 20 where AutoZone is. I mean, you don't want that to be an adult theme store, do you?
Mm-mm.
In that channel. So I don't know. I think we have to be careful.
So, you know, when I'm reading through the adult business ordinance, it's also that you can't, it's not illegal to have an adult business, right? Provided you stay within the law, right? You can't have a massage parlor, right? But you can, that's why it doesn't ban massaging. It just makes sure that you're licensed and you're doing X, Y, and Z. And similarly, like, you can have a movie theater that shows adult films as long as that's all you're doing there, right? That's not illegal.
Johnson had one of them.
And it's, so there's a section in the ordinance about, like, we're just saying the purpose of this ordinance isn't to infringe on First Amendment protected activities. And I think that's important to note, is that, like,
it's important.
If these things come in, we can't just say no because of their nature. It has to be because they're violating a rule that is not discriminating on them based on that solely, right? It's about.
That's fair.
That's fair.
It's like, you know, zoning. Just because the P&Z doesn't like a project that's presented doesn't mean they can say no. It has to be something wrong with the zoning that is the basis of them saying no. So,
but I think that's more my point about talking about where it's located, the size of our town, and where things are, right? You don't want those. I don't think you don't want those at the forefront or the center of your town.
Right.
no. And if I recall, again, this was several years ago, but the adult business ordinance, I think there were like radii. It can't be within X distance of schools and, you know, other facilities. I'd have to reread it, but I think if the only reason that, you know, we're presenting this to you is because of that poor woman with the you know, licensed massage therapist.
Yeah.
who had adverse impacts because of this ordinance, and we'd hate to see that again. So, you know, if just a general direction, if you guys are on board with taking the relevant portions of the massage parlor ordinance and folding them into the adult business ordinance, we can get to Rich and he can, you know, come up with something and present it.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm fine with that.
Mhm. Likewise.
Okay. All right. Chapter 2, Article 3, Rory.
So this was, I think you guys, you know, we're just going to bite off a little piece each time, unless specific things came up. And, you know, it's been so long since your last meeting that specific things have come up. But the last time that you chose a section, this was it. There's not much in here that I see. I don't know if you want to go section by section.
I say we can look at it and then our next meeting go that way.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I like that. Let's, that's basically, that is our homework assignment for next meeting. Look at chapter 2, article 3.
Yep.
And there's not much. It's pretty brief, and there's a couple of procedural things, so that's all I saw. So that's
Right.
not too much for you guys. You've got enough stuff.
Yeah, we got a lot. And then when's the next time do we want to meet?
How often were we doing this before? It's all kind of a blur.
Yeah, I think we're trying to meet the Monday before our Board of Selectmen meeting. But I kind of felt that we were rushed because then we had to get something to speak to them about.
Steven set it up as a monthly meeting on this, you know, whatever this is, the fourth Thursday. If that doesn't work for you, we can.
You know what, the fourth Thursday may work because then if we're doing, what's our meeting, the first and third, then that kind of gives us a week to go through our stuff.
Yeah, it seems like we're busier on the first half of the month, every month. So
Yeah.
this may work.
Yeah,
It could be the fourth Tuesday or Thursday or whatever fits everybody's schedule.
let's leave it as the fourth Thursday. And if something doesn't work, then we'll just communicate and figure out when. I just think that we all got so busy and then summer hit and vacations and things like that.
We can make a point of checking in at the second Board of Selectmen meeting. That's
Okay.
all. And
All
if
right.
this isn't going to work, we'll find another time.
Okay.
Okay.
So then that will be we'll meet August
26th.
26th. And then that will give us plenty of time to review the 490, A490. Come up with any questions we have for Joe. The assessor. It gives Joe enough time to come to the meeting. It will give enough time for us to get Rich the questions that we have for him, as well as review chapter 2, article 3. What are your thoughts? Okay. Good. All right. Within that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Bob Finley, second by Rob Van Egan, chair votes aye. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good. Motion adjourned at 7:55. How's that, Roar?